Alright, let's talk about some shoes. Today I'm going to help you decide where you should spend your hard-earned money. The market is full of different types of dance shoes with lots of different variations, and sometimes it can get super confusing to know which ones to buy, especially if you are new to starting out. In this video, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to give you the guidelines that you need to pick the best shoe for you. We're going to be talking about heel height, we're going to be talking about size, width, whether you should go for like a sandal or a boot, or whether you should go for a trainer and the type of trainer you should go for. So we're going to be talking about all of those things. So let me put these down and let's get into it. Okay, first off, and probably one of the most important things we're going to talk about is sizing. Now, the size really varies depending on whether you're buying from an American company, a UK company, a European one, a Chinese one. It changes, and the only way really that you can know that something's going to fit is of course to order it and buy it. So two things I would recommend is, one is always look at a sizing chart, and two, make sure that the returns policy is good so that when you have them and you try them, you always have the option to send them back. This is super important because I've known people that have gotten shoes for like 70, 80 quid from somewhere else, and the returns policy has not been very good. They've had to pay extra fees, international fees, but it just hasn't been worth sending the shoes back. So then they end up making a loss on the shoe and they don't end up using the shoe either. So just make sure returns policy is good. Thinking about heel height. Can you walk in heels? Like just generally day to day. If you are new to heels, I would always recommend going for a smaller heel and then over time working your way up. Because it's one thing to be able to walk in heels, it's another thing to dance in them, and you really need to develop the ankle strength and the ability to move around in them to know which size that you want. Some people won't even bother with the heeled shoe, they'll just go straight for the trainers. We'll talk about those later. But if you are keen on wearing heels, I love wearing heels when I'm dancing. If you're keen on doing that, you just want to make sure that if you are new to them, start on the lower end and then move your way up. I'll show you some options because I actually have some shoes to show you. I'll show you some options of what you can have. This is probably the smallest I would go on a heel if you are new. I'll bring that nice up and close. So this one is kind of more of a Cuban heel because it's a lot thicker. It's thicker, it's shorter, and the shoe type, you know, you can get this heel on different types of shoe. It doesn't have to be this kind of shoe, but the important bit is the height. So that's one option. So here you've got a thinner heel, not as thin as like the normal standard shoe, but it is still thinner than the Cuban, but it is here a little bit longer, as you can see, just a little bit longer. Usually they kind of range in like an inch or half-inch sizes. So I would always recommend, if you're not sure, check with a ruler, see how high you want to do it. I have made the mistake before, be like, yeah, I'm gonna go for these ones look right, and they've been way too high that I can't dance in them. So just get them checked. And then I've got a little slightly higher one there as well, which is even higher than this one. And again, as you can see, the higher they get, the bit thinner that they get too. You do also have different styles. So you've got like a Cuban heel here, you've got a flared heel where it kind of comes out a little bit at the bottom, but you also have like a stiletto heel. Now, for me personally, my ideal is a flare heel. All of my dance shoes that I use will always have a flare heel. The stiletto heel for me doesn't give enough balance for when I'm doing and executing moves, and then the Cuban one is just a little bit too thick. So for me, I'd go for a flare heel, and I'd also stick a heel protector on there just to keep the heel nicer for longer. Now, sandals versus boots. This kind of sandal, especially in that like nude color, tends to be extremely popular in the ballroom and Latin dance world. Why? Because it doesn't really draw attention to your feet, and it allows you to produce a much nicer point. So you can see that is bending so much easier. Now with the boot, I find that it gives more ankle support. I feel like this bit is more sturdy, and also I kind of like the look of them also. However, whenever I've had them, even from like good expensive brands, they don't tend to have as much point. So I can do a little bit of a point here, but it is a struggle. And the middle doesn't bend much. So it depends on really what your priorities are. I tend to just go with this because I don't tend to point my toes in this manner that often for bachata specifically, but if you're doing other styles of dancing, I would recommend this because this allows you to actually point your foot. Now, another thing which you might not have thought of is a closed toe, like so, versus an open toe. In the ballroom world, things tend to be closed toe more often, and in the Latin world, they tend to be open toe more often. I think this is just a matter of preference, to be honest. Sometimes, depending on the length of your toes, yeah, we're going there. Depending on your length of your toes, if you get ones with loads of straps, this one's not too bad, but if you get ones with loads of straps and you're dancing, sometimes your toe can get caught in this. It has happened to me before. Can get caught in here, and then you're sort of mid-dance with like a toe hanging out. So if you are someone with different toe lengths or ones that might come into the shoe, you might want to consider getting something that doesn't have straps or is like one solid. I'll put a picture up so it makes more sense so that you can see, but that is also just a weird thing to consider, but something to consider. The thing I will say about an open toe is that your toes have no protection, okay? So if you get stepped on, that's you getting stepped on. At least with a closed toe, maybe not so much this one because it's actually fabric, but with a closed one you do get a little bit more protection. So it's something to consider when you're dancing very close to people, is toe protection. Now looking at these straps, you do have different types of straps and different ways of clasping them. This one, for example, has this design where you kind of just hook it on, which makes it really easy. You don't have to sort of fumble around so much. However, depending on the arch of your foot, you might want to look at different options to make sure that there is space for your foot. This one's alright, okay. These ones have got loads of space, so that's okay. But depending on the shape of your foot, you might end up going for different types of straps or different shoe based on the strap because of the shape of your foot. When you have the boot shoes, typically a lot of them tend to have a lace, and sometimes they even have a zip. I tend to like do up the laces and then just use the zip to put it on and take them off. I will say I really like having this lace because it means that I can tighten it as tight as possible. Often they come with a really long strap. I don't actually know what you're meant to do with this. I just tend to wrap it around my leg and tie it around my leg. But for me, I like the fact that I can adjust how tight it is, especially because I have very small ankles. I can adjust how tight the shoe is clinging onto my foot, again giving me that greater stability and support that I don't necessarily get with the strappy ones. And then another one to think about is just ones that are purely zip up, so they wouldn't have anything here, they'll just have a zip, and this is like a standard size. For these are terrible for me, okay, because I have small ankles, as I said, so if there's a standard size, it's just not going to fit. Having adjustable is really important to me. I have bought ones which are just zip up before, and they just kind of hang loose, so I don't feel like they're supporting my foot at all, and any sort of kind of twist, the shoe just decides to have a mind of its own. So for me, I would say avoid those. Of course, do what you like, but personally avoid. Okay, next up I'm going to talk about the trainers or practice heels that you can also have. I do like to wear practice shoes when I have a very long day of dancing that I don't really need to be like in performance mode for. These shoes save my feet. It means that my feet are just a little bit more prepared for when I wear heels. I'm not wearing heels all day every day. That being said, you might also want to wear them for socials, and I do have them somewhere, but not right here. So I'm going to pop a picture up for you to see. They basically got that Cuban heel, so they give you a little bit of height. The bottom tends to be suede or leather. We'll talk about that in a moment. And again, you've got lots of support for the foot and they're closed toe. So these, maybe not the most attractive things, but they do save my feet. The other option are trainers. Trainers are becoming increasingly more popular in the bachata world for sure. And generally speaking, you have two types that you've seen. The first is a split sole. Again, you also see this in the ballroom and Latin world a lot. So split sole allows you to get that point that we were talking about before. There's sort of nothing in the sole area, so it allows it to bend. And then generally speaking, you've got things like this, which are a little bit smoother so that then you can spin on the floor. So despite all of the grip, you still have a nice smooth spinning surface. Again, because they're trainers, they're adjustable. These ones are quite soft as well. These are from Blush. These are quite soft as well, so these are nice and comfortable for the foot. I will say, as someone with flat feet, is like having zero support here. I do find that the center of my foot does start to hurt after a while. So for me, these aren't ideal, but they're good for like shorter dance stints. And then the other one I want to talk about is what everyone's wearing in the bachata world, which are like fuegos or panamillos, which generally are have this kind of similar design where there's a circle and maybe another circle over here, which helps you to spin around, and it's just a comfortable flat shoe to allow you to stay more grounded. So those tend to be the more popular options. I don't have any of those shoes, I just wear normal trainers, but people do rave about those other brands. Now going back to the heels option, and of course this, like, you've got this kind of plasticky grip that you can have on shoes. You can also have a leather sole, which I quite like because it means you can go out and about and you can go outside while still having like a decent level of sort of slip to be able to spin. But the sort of go-to for competitions, things like that, is a suede sole. Now, suede sole does give me, anyway, the nicest feeling when I'm turning, when I'm dancing. However, you cannot go outside in them because it will ruin them, and they do get ruined quite quickly. There is a sort of hack to this where you can buy stick-on suede. So you can get like a shoe like this, maybe not as long as it's got lots of grip, but a shoe. and stick on the suede so then you've got something to spin on. Oh, before I move on, the other thing I'll say about a suede sole is that it's more flexible than the leather sole. Oh wait, I'm saying this, I've actually got some here. Here you go, suede sole. The suede sole is more flexible than the leather sole, which means that, again, you can get that nice point, which you won't necessarily get with a strong leather sole. And finally, let's talk about colour. Now, wear whatever colour makes you happy, okay? The only thing I'll say is if you are competing, specifically in a ballroom and Latin competition, you want to try and get a shoe that's as closest to your skin tone as possible as nude, because whenever you have something bright, shiny or black, it draws attention to your feet and your footwork, which maybe necessarily isn't the best, and you might not want to draw eyes over there, especially when you're doing amazing things up here and your dress is looking amazing. So what I would say is if you are competing, you want to go for a colour that kind of complements your skin tone or what you're wearing. Otherwise, you can wear whatever you want, really. I've got silver, I've got red, I've got black, I've got nude. For the nude shades, it is definitely harder to find darker shades. If you are like me or you're darker than me, they do exist, it's just harder to find, and because of that, there's a higher price point, so just keep that in mind. That being said, those are all the things that you need to think about. There's quite a lot to think about there, but I would always say trial and error is best. This gives you a rough guide, so you're like, okay, maybe I want this heel height, this kind of shoe, maybe the flare, I like the look of the sandals, or actually I need my ankle support, so I'm going to go for the boot because flexibility is not that important. Or you know what, forget heels altogether, I'm going to go for a trainer that helps me spin. Either way, hopefully this has been a quick guide to help you get on your way to buying your first pair of dance shoes. And if you have any questions, drop them down in the comments below. I will also say I have a mailing list and I'm going to be sending out some useful information, particularly for bachata dancers. So if you're a bachata dancer and you'd like to join the bachata newsletter mailing list, there's a link in the first pinned comment. Thank you so much. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video.